One sec. Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. Ready to go. So, hi everyone. Sebastiano here. I work at JetBrains. I know. Shut up, Lamberto. Shut up. I know it's very small. This was not meant for a TV, but I'll fix it in a second. Don't worry. I am going to be explaining a bit of how you can make the most of your IDE. I'm going to be using IntelliJ IDEA, but everything I'm going to say also applies to Android Studio, so should be fine for everyone in the audience. This talk actually uses, so I've done it in Paris in the spring. I didn't like it, so I've changed it entirely, and now it's a different thing. Also, it's a live coding session, so there's no slides. I'm just going to be probably typing stuff wrong for the next half hour or so. I apologize in advance about that. You can find the code that I'm going to be working on a repository. I'm going to be tweeting the link later because it's, yes, I found out you cannot zoom in on the Markdown preview in the IDE, so I found the bug that I need to open. Okay, so what to do? Let's say, okay, I'm going to explain a few things, and then we can see how we can put those things in practice. The goal of this talk is that by the end of the session, you should be familiar with a few tricks that are going to make your life easier when working on your code. I will not start the application because I do not trust the conference Wi-Fi. I think it's not good for anyone. It's like imagine a small application that you type in like a Twitter username and it shows some details about the user. It's the easiest thing you can imagine. But the point is, the code is horrible. It's horrible by design. So when you go and look at the code, remember it's horrible by design, and you should not learn bad stuff from it. I might maybe commit the cleaned up version at some point, but I make no promises for that. So yeah, just the experience is what matters here, is not the end result or the start point. Okay, so let me start. So the first thing is, when you go on stage and you realize that everything is way too small, you can go in the settings and you can change the font to something way bigger, and hopefully you can see it. Is it better? I don't think I can do any more than this without being able to see any code anymore. This is small. It's gonna be bigger when we get to the actual code. Don't worry. But at least you can see this. The Chrome of the window is bigger. Okay. So thing number one: if you're using your IDE and you do not know about search action and search everywhere, you're probably doing it wrong. I am trying to show you how you can do most of the stuff without the mouse, but I'm not the kind of person that will frown if you use the mouse, because I personally use both the keyboard and the mouse. But there's a few things that are undoubtedly better and faster when you use a keyboard. So the first thing you can do is to search for something. That can be a file, that can be a function name, that can be an action. What you do is you tap the Shift key twice, and then you have everything. And here you see, for example, there's it's listing files. Maybe I want to do, I can change the branches in the history, so you can do that. You can also start something useful, such as presentation mode. And presentation mode is going to be useful now, but what I wanted to show you is that I don't need to write the entire presentation like I just did. I can actually do pres mode, and it will do fuzzy search. everywhere in IntelliJ where you can search for something, you do not need to write the whole word. Just write a part of it. That's going to be fine. So is it P mode good enough? Yeah, good enough. Is the third one. Okay, so we are now in presentation mode. Oh God, everything is huge. Let me, whoops. Let me reduce it a bit, because I think this is a bit too much. Okay, slightly better, still broken, but slightly better. Okay, so let's say we now want to, now I'm in dark mode. I want to switch to light mode, or I want to change the keyboard mapping because maybe I have my own custom keyboard mappings, but I'm pairing with someone and they are used to the normal keyboard mapping. So there's a very convenient thing that few people know in IntelliJ, which is the switch dialog, which is done with control and the backtick. That's both on Windows and Linux and on macOS. And then you can change the color scheme, the code style, you can change what keyboard shortcuts mapping you're using, and you can change the theme as well. So if you want to be blinded, you can quickly be blinded. You can also use numbers if you want. So 5, 2, I just did. 5 because theme was the 5th, and 2 because dark was the 2nd. Okay, I think I covered the very beginning, the basics. Folks, there's a few seats around if you want to sit down. I'm just covering the basics, but I'm going to be going through everything you've missed so far anyway again, so don't worry. So, okay, that was how to get started. Now, let's go in a bit of code. Let's try and do that. So I am going to do search everywhere, and here I can type the name of the file. What I can also do is I can do navigate go to file, which will select this for you and will keep whatever you've typed. So you can start typing anywhere and then realize, oh, I actually just want files. Then you can just click the Files tab, or you can do the appropriate shortcut. By the way, when I do a shortcut, you're going to see down here the action that I'm invoking and the shortcut that you use on macOS and on Windows and Linux. Shut up. Okay, so main, that's a big main file. It's not view.java, but it's also not a small file. It's almost an entire Compose app in there. So when you navigate a file, you can scroll like I just did, but it only is helpful to a point. There are a number of ways you can navigate in a file. One of my favorites, and one that I've never seen in almost anyone using, is the file structure thing, which is super useful because even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you can still read all the names of all the things like classes, functions, variables, whatever. And you can, it's a tree, so you can go into the specific thing and it will navigate exactly to the definition of that thing. That's very useful. In this case, I just want to do, I just want to go to the main. As everything in IntelliJ, you can just start typing. And now I am at the entry point. Okay, so I don't know if any of you are familiar with Compose Desktop, but if you know Jetpack Compose, you've kind of got the gist of the point is the same. It just looks slightly different because you have an application entry point here, and then you define windows this way, but from inside the window, it looks the same. So don't be scared. Same principles apply. Obviously, you're doing desktop, you're not doing Android, so there are small differences in how you access resources, for example, but same idea. It's still Compose. I'm also using a third-party theme, which is from a GitHub library I forgot, but it's not too important for this. Just in case you're wondering what this is, it's a library. I also have the material theme here, in case you're wondering, because I'm using some components that are not provided by the Mac theme, so half and half. It's a hack. Again, don't look at this code for ideas. So Okay, this is a fairly simple entry point. We have our window defined here. We have a title. We have the icon. And we have this very important thing, which is, well, when the user clicks the cross button on the window, close the application. Now, this function in and by itself is fine, is like 20 lines, acceptable, not too long, can fit on a screen even with huge ass font size like we see here. But maybe I want to start changing the way stuff looks here. And something I can do, for example, is I can say, I actually don't like the order of these lines. They're not, like I prefer to have the icon first. So what you would normally do is you would use the mouse, select, and drag. Don't do that. That's a bad way of doing it. There's actually a function in the editor that allows you to move lines up and down with one key press. And there's also the smart version of that, which is with Command instead of Alt, that allows you to move the logic block up or down, which is useful, for example, if you want to reorder functions. You can use the smart version to move the entire function up or down. And it will maybe at some point unfreeze. In the meantime, aha! Yeah, I did something. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to show you something else on how to navigate in a file. Now, I've moved the cursor back and forth in a bunch of places. That's great. What I can do is I can navigate back and forth like you would in a browser by using the back and navigate backwards and navigate forwards. This is particularly useful if you're working on a piece of code and then you divert your attention to something else and then you just want to go back to where you were earlier. This is super helpful. You can also use the recent locations, which would normally show more than a couple at a time, but the font is huge. But the idea is that it gives you previews of where you were earlier. So it's kind of like a history, but a visual history. And that's super convenient. Say, for example, I want to go back to the text field that I was at earlier. There you go. If you want to do it the same with files, because I'm going to be in a single file, but maybe you have like a dozen files and you're moving back and forth. There's also recent files, which is the same shortcut without the shift. And that will give you the list of all the files that you've opened recently, including the slides that I am not going to be using. And oh yeah, here as well, you can start typing stuff and it will filter down. So it's super easy and super fast to move around. Okay, I think I've covered the navigation basics. There's obviously a lot more, but I don't want to spend like half an hour just showing you how to move the cursor around, because I guess that could be slightly boring. Let me go back to the top. Okay, perfect. Now, I've shown you how to move a line up or a line down, but it's not all there is to it. There's some really useful stuff that you might need at some point. I use, for example, all the time the expand selection or extend selection, which, for example, if my cursor were in this string and I wanted to select the entire string, I can just do Alt up and then Alt up again because there's a dot there. So it's like, oh, I'm just going to take the part before the dot, and then I'm going to take the entirety of the string, and then I'm going to take the entirety of the string with the double quotes, and then I'm going to take the full function invocation that I am passing the string on, and then I'm going to take the whole parameter, and so on, 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 and so on. And you can also do the other way around. So you can shrink the selection as well, which is super useful. This is particularly useful if you're trying to do something like cutting just a piece of code and you want to paste it somewhere else. Speaking of cutting and pasting, you might be tempted to think that to create a variable, you have to move the cursor somewhere, maybe in here, and do val banana whatever equals whatever it is. No. If I want to, for example, create a variable from the painter resource, What I can do is there's a shortcut for that, which will create it for me. And in this case is Alt Command V. That will select the current expression. If it's in doubt, it's going to ask you what exactly do you want to extract the variable for? Do you want the whole thing or just this specific expression? And then you confirm it, and it asks you, okay, where do you want to put it? Do you want to put it in this scope? Do you want to put it in this scope? And I'm like, I want it here. And I'm going to call it potato. Ta-da! And I have created a variable very easily. This is good for variables. It's not the only way you can define variables easily. We'll see more later. But this is particularly useful in other variants because, for example, what I can do is I can say, oh, I want this to be a parameter of this function. And I don't want to have to move the mouse to the parentheses, start typing, and then replacing everything everywhere. What you want to do is just saying, oh, make this a parameter. And it's like, yeah, sure, done. And now it's up here. The same kind of thing you can do with fields. So for variables is Command-Alt-V. For parameters, it's Command-Alt-P. If you want to create a property like a class property or a top-level property, what do you expect that the shortcut will be? Any guesses? F. Yes. And do you know why it's F and not P? Because P was used again, but also because in Java, when this thing was invented 20 years ago-ish, you don't call them property, you call them fields. So if you want to extract a field, it's Command-Alt-F. I think there's also, in Java, you can also extract a constant field with Command-Alt-C. And then there's another version, which is extract method, which we're going to be using a bit later. And it's super useful when your code looks like that. Well, not this specifically, but in general. I also wanted to point you to the fact that I have intentionally left some red code there. If you open a file and you see some red, and you don't know where it is, because maybe you're down here, I don't know, where is it? Where is the red? There's a shortcut for that. F2 will bring you to the first red bit. Or if there's no error, it will bring you to the first warning. And if there's no warning, it's going to tell you, you're okay, dude. Okay, this line I don't really need. It's fine. I don't need a banana variable for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the line. There's a shortcut for that. What have you guessed? Okay, so I have shown you some stuff. I've shown you how to do extraction. I think the interesting thing before we actually get to make this code look a bit better, another thing that I particularly love about IntelliJ is the ability to create live templates. And you can find live templates everywhere. But the idea of a live templates is that I can start typing something, and these things you see here with the rubber stamp next to them are live templates. And I can, if I know what the name of something is, of one template, I can write a lot of code without having to write a lot of code. So in this case, I want to create a function with the one parameter. I just type fun1, or just type probably even just F. Yeah. F is fine. And then you can press tab, and it will create a function for you. And then you can tab through things. Lol, this is unit, because it's lol. And it returns unit. Obviously, you don't actually need unit, but you can F2 to something that you don't use. In this case, the function is never used. So what I'm going to do is I am going to invoke. Ah, thank you. That's going to be useful. So, grazie. Maya. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my mind. That says too much about me, I think. So I am going to delete this. It's fine. I'll keep talking. Don't worry. So here the tooltip says if I do, awesome, thank you. I can either do Alt-Enter, which would bring up the whole, hi mom, that would bring up the whole selection actions menu for the inspection, or I can also do the predefined action, which is, instead of being Alt-Enter, is going to be Alt-Shift-Enter. And of course, that's a problem. It's conflicting. There's a conflict in the key map. I have fixed it on the other computer, but I forgot to do it on this one. It's okay. It's fine. We can fix it now. So I can go to key map and I can say, I need to, still going down. Stop it. Okay, so I can, there's a very useful thing is I don't know what the name of that action is, but I can find something by shortcut. So I can do Alt-Shift-Enter, and it will tell me which ones there are there. And I think this is the one I don't like. So I can remove that shortcut, and now it doesn't do anything. Yes, I probably did. It's fine. Nobody's seen anything. It's done. One key press. Okay. Let's. I'm very sorry about this code. It's horrible. But that's the point. Let's say someone else's code, and I'm just here to fix it. Okay. So, for example, let me see if I can actually manage to run the application on conference Wi-Fi. Will it load? Will it not load? I don't know. Maybe it will. It was compiling. Ooh. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, while it thinks very hard about its choices in life, yes, you are allowed. Yes, yes. Thank you very much for going to the wrong desktop. Perfect. Okay, so I have my app here on the side. It's all very good. It's a good thing I didn't have any weird unread emails. The app here is obviously not loading the profile image because that would be too much. It does work, I swear. But the idea is that we have this application here that, yeah, it's given up. It's okay. It at least loads the content, so that's good. We have a header here that contains, that is this, the main window content is everything you see on screen. And then we have a column that contains the header and the actual content. So the first row that you see horizontally over across the top of the app is this row here. And you see there's the text that is look up Twitter user, and there's a spacer, and then there's stuff happening, and then there's the text field, and then there's a lot of hacks around that as well. That's fine. The problem is that now the main window content function, if I see how many lines it is, oh yeah, in presentation mode I don't have the bottom bar, so it doesn't tell me. But I can maybe do the math. I'm doing the math. Okay, it's over 300 lines, fuck it. It's more than it should be. Let's put it that way. So what I want to do is, for example, the header should probably be composable by itself because it's one logical unit. And the header is this row here that I have. So what I can do is, I want to extract a function from this with just the contents of the row. So what I can do is, I can do Command Alt M, and it will think. It didn't ask me for the name of the function because reasons. It generally does, but I'm on stage. So this is the header bar. Yes, header bar is perfectly Perfectly cromulent name. Now, this is a good opportunity to show you something. What do you want? Should start with a lowercase letter. Well, it shouldn't. It's a composable. Or maybe it isn't. So the tooling for Jetpack Compose would have added the @composable annotation for me. The desktop version is a bit more immature. It doesn't yet. It will at some point, but it doesn't yet. But that will do that stuff for you as well, generally, when you do Android. Okay, so I think it did something that it wasn't supposed to do. Okay, so why is it happening? It's fine. It makes sense from its perspective. First of all, I think I have extracted the whole thing by mistake. It's fine. I can undo. I'm done. Okay. So what I can do is I just select the row. I think that's why it got really confused, because it was too much stuff. I'm just going to extract the row pair. A pair of what? Yes. I think this should only be the header row, because I only have the row here. Yes. Okay. Oh, it's returning a pair because I should be hoisting this state. Now, the problem is that because I was using those things as variable in my code previously, but this is changing that state. Obviously, once I extract this, if I run this, it's not going to work anymore because the state is not properly updated. So what you would do, you hoist the state. So first thing you do is you inline this. I never remember what's the shortcut. So inline, yes. Cannot perform. Thank you. That's useful. I can also do select multiple occurrences and delete the one. And then, because it's trying to write it, so it doesn't let me because, no. I can also delete the stuff and follow the red, as I shown you before. And I can select multiple occurrences and just say, it's all of them. Yeah, sure, done, fine, fixed. Obviously, now the problem is that I have the points where it's trying to write those values, and that's not possible because it's a parameter. But what I can do is I can say, first of all, I want to put the parameters on separate lines, so I can easily add one more, and then I can do on search focus change, and this is going to be a Boolean, and that goes to a unit, fine. And then what I can do, I can go back here and say on search focus change, true. And then same thing down here, I can do on search focus change, and I can do this, and I'm done. And now I need to do the same thing with the username. So I am going here, and I'm gonna say on username change. And here is going to be on username change with just this. Okay, now obviously this doesn't exist. It's kind of a problem. But I can create a function. It's not particularly useful right now. But what I can do is I can just go here and add on username change, which is also string, and returns unit. Okay, cool. So we have hoisted that. Convert to Lambda. Did not convert to Lambda. Oh, this works. Okay, yeah, right, yes. Okay, fine. Now I've added some stuff. I've changed the signature of header row, and obviously I've broken some code somewhere. So what I need to do now that I've hosted the state, I need to go back where I was, where the red is now, where pair is. I don't need pair anymore. Let me go and fix it. I am going to delete pair. There's going to be some red at the bottom. I do not need that anymore. And then I can go back up where the red was. And now this stuff here, I already have the search focused variable defined, which is fine. I don't need this log anymore. And I can say that on search focus change, I'm going to assign is search focus to it. Now this line is getting way too long, so again, I am going to separate lines. And that's something that I use very often, so you don't have to do it by hand. You can let the IDE do that for you. Ooh, half an hour. Okay, and then I have to do the same thing with on username change. And I don't have the username field yet, I think, or maybe I do. Do I have it? Yes, I do. Okay, it's fine. I'm done. Okay, so now I can go down to the errors, nuke those lines, and I have done a refactor. Obviously, there's still this. We don't, like, pair is actually unit because we're not returning anything. So I can remove the variable and refactor done. Let me think what else we can do here. So down here, I have a box that is the main content of this window. So everything below the line is in this box. This is kind of begging us to extract, because it goes on. Don't worry, I'm not done. Okay, now I'm done. So I think it's probably a good idea to extract that. And I can extend the selection without even seeing where my cursor is, because I know it was at the top. And I can do extract. Hope it doesn't. Yeah, it works. Yay. This is main content box. Horrible names. I'm very bad with names. Okay, one more thing. Again, Studio will do it for you, but not for desktop. So you need to add composable by hand. Okay. Now, this is only reading the username and search focus. And the loadable content is a state that comes from the view model. You're probably familiar with that. What we do then is we take the state, and then in this giant when, still going, we handle the different states. Obviously, this is not great. So now, again, what we can do is we can say, oh, well, maybe I will not bother extracting this because it's only empty. It's just when I do this, there's just nothing to see here. It's probably okay. But already when I start typing something, so the loading state is a spinning thing that uses a custom animation that probably could be extracted as well. So let me extract the loading stuff. So what I can do, it was kind of afraid of doing the right thing, but I can just give a hint to the IDE by expanding the selection to the part that I want. And this is loading content, something like that. Now this fits in one line. I do not need the brackets anymore. So what I can do is I can do remove braces, and I can also remove that empty line and that empty line. Great. Same thing for error state. Let's say I disconnect from Wi-Fi and I type something, and this is gonna break. Ooh, it's breaking better. I have not tested this. It's fine. It's died. It's okay. You have the idea. The point is that there is an error state that we're displaying as well. So what we do here again is we select the part that we want to extract, and we extract it. And this is error content. And again, whoops. And again, you can do remove braces. And now we have the main content. The main content is more complex because it does a million things and there's a lot of repetition. So one thing, you get the idea. I'm not going to do the extraction for this, but the idea is always the same. One thing I want to show you is, for example, if you want to see if you have a piece of duplicated code, or if you know you have a piece of duplicated code, what you can do, for example, is extract a variable. So if I say, I'm not entirely sure that I have everything here, but for sure this one I have somewhere else. So I can do extract variable for 360, and I can put it in the larger scope, and I can say, the IDE is smart. It's saying, it's very tiny, I don't know why, but it's saying, do you want to only replace, like extract this, or do you want me to extract the other uses of this in scope as well? So I can say, well, both of them, and this is now max angle, because it's a rotating thing. So now, if you go and see where it's used, you can see it's used here. That's where we extracted it, but also down here. So the IDE has replaced that. And I can go on and on forever. I have about 10 minutes, so let me think if there's one last thing that I want to show. Well, one of the obvious things would be reformat the file. I haven't done it yet. Format one line. That was disappointing. I was hoping for something more. It's fine. The lines are very long, but I think I have put a very lax code style, because otherwise this would be a wall of yellow warnings. So let's see. Maybe we can extract this. Let's see. I was hoping that we would find other uses for this, but it's okay. Let's see what other horrors await us down here. Okay, so yes, there's another thing where you can see that this bit here, oh yeah, you can collapse and expand parts of code. That's also very convenient. Because if you're looking at a very big function, you can at least skip a big chunk of stuff without having to, scroll until you find the matching brace. So you can just say, okay, I'm going to collapse this. Okay, so this is the last bit of this function, and it's only happening if the user is not null. And then there's a bunch of more conditionals in there. So what we do is we take the whole thing, like the whole content of the if braces, and we extract the function. And this is user info, something like that. Obviously, still need to add the composable, which wouldn't be normally a problem, but yeah, that's it. So you get an idea. In 10 minutes, we have already improved the shape of this code a bit. Obviously, once you get used to it, once you're not explaining every step to someone, it takes way less time. But the point is that by using these tools that are fairly obvious once you get used to them, you can code much faster. You are able to do more stuff, to refactor your code, to make your code look better without most of the effort. You only have to do the thinking part, which is not something we can delegate to the IDE yet, but maybe one day. Someone did say Copilot. I heard that. No. It's not going to do the refactors for you. It's just going to tell you how to introduce bugs. Yeah, I think I probably should stop now. If you have any questions, this is your time. Otherwise, I'm still going to be around tomorrow as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.